We're done? Okay. Welcome to Tech Day. This is our breakout session on grant writing. And our speakers today are Kara Mishmash, Project Coordinator for the Community Foundation of Southeast Kansas. Kara leads KCSEK's programming efforts, which include annual awarding of over $500,000 in competitive grants and over $100,000 in scholarships. As a Southeast Kansas Southeast Kansas native, she graduated from Independence High School and earned a degree in interior design from Pittsburgh State University in 2008. And then we also have Elena Stifler. And Elena is the executive director of Your Community Foundation. And I'm one of her board members. I am on the board of the Your Community Foundation. So Elena really recently graduated from Kansas State University with her BA in finance and a minor in economics. She's originally from here in Iola, so she is a boomerang, and we're so happy to have her back in town. She also has an associate's in business administration from Allen County Community College. And she and I are both in Kansas leadership Kansas leadership training for the Community Foundations of Kansas through the Patterson Foundation. Yes. Yep. So, and I'm Sharon. Tammy and I are both here, and we did a grant writing workshop in 2021. So we'll chime in as we.
Yes. All right. First, thank you guys for coming. A couple of, I guess, kind of housekeeping. We have a few questions that are kind of sprinkled throughout to kind of gauge your level of interest. Something that just might lean a little more towards your particular interests. And then we'll have hopefully a little bit of time for a Q&A at the end if you have any questions. And then after the presentation, if you guys can stick around, I'd like to get a group photo, please. Okay. So in today's presentation, we'll be discussing some steps, suggestions, tips, etc. at varying experience and difficulty levels of grant applications, grant writing. Some of you could complete a community foundation application in your sleep. Some of you might need a little extra help. Maybe this is your first time delving into grant writing. So, trying to get, dip your toe in the water. Some of you want to know, some nitty gritty into getting some of the higher dollar grant awards. And then some of you just have, frequent smaller requests and want to better your applications. This isn't an all-encompassing presentation that will fully net you a multi-million-dollar, award. But there are a lot of ideas and tips kind of mixed within that could help an application like that. There are going to be a lot more steps and a lot more requirements in an application like that. But my particular knowledge is my foundation, my application. I've just been able to kind of glean some general good use ideas for grant writing. So one of those sprinkled in questions, I'm going to forget to use this, just FYI. What do you guys want to have learned when you leave here today? Any particular questions?
I would kind of like to know how to query our patrons for what they would like in the library, to know how to use that as evidence in the grant.
Okay, awesome. Okay. So I think I got my stuff mixed up, so we might be doing this on the fly. So our agenda today is we're going to do a little bit of groundwork, some implementation, things like that. Data and reporting, how to collect that information, what information might be important. Yeah, I missed a page. Anyways, what info might be important to you or to your grant funder, the evaluation process, what that looks like as far the committees that evaluate your grants or your grant applications, what to do post-award, local foundations, CFSEK and YCF, And then we'll talk a little bit about, the possibility of agency endowments. So what is your why? So who has a project in mind, that they're kind of mulling around applying for, and would you like to tell us about what that might be?
Well, in Sudan, we're fortunate enough to get a community block grant from the state Department of Commerce to. And, renovate a building to move into, current building we're in. No longer, we can't stay there, we vacate that building. In any case, it's enough to, renovate half of it,
Okay,
and then we have to fundraise to renovate the other half. And also deck it out with furniture and all that kind of stuff, so
that's awesome.
that's our.
That's really awesome. So when you search for, grant opportunities, are you able to easily find out if they will fund like, capital improvements and things like that?
I'm looking for sources to apply to.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, have not very much experience, so.
Just general, like Kansas Google searches on capital improvement grants might get you a few. There's a couple out of, I think Kansas City, I can't think of the name of them off the top of my head. But that are specifically geared towards capital improvements and construction costs and things like that for nonprofits. And I mentioned, go ahead.
One of them is the Sunderland Family
Thank you,
Foundation,
that's exactly.
and then the other one is, which is Ash Grove, but then the other one is the Ash Grove Charitable Foundation,
That sounds.
which is separate, but it also does capital. The Sunderland Family Foundation is, their grant should be coming open later this year, but they're fabulous. The second one is Ash Grove. Sunderland. Sunderland, it's the Sunderland Family Foundation, it's from. Yeah,
Lawrence or?
no, it's
Oh.
new, it's
Is it
local,
new?
it's
Why
Southeast
did I
Kansas, yeah, but Vance who is managing it is out of Kansas City.
Gotcha. So I mentioned that specifically and related to your project. I'm not sure, does your grant cycle fund capital improvements?
Some, we do,
Yeah.
furniture and.
Okay,
Yeah, building improvements we've done in the past, and one project was we replaced carpet and.
Okay.
Nonprofit stuff.
okay. So we don't completely eliminate it from possibility, but one of the, I guess, disclaimers during the application process is capital improvements, building and construction aren't typically funded. We almost always run on, we have about half of the available funds to the requested dollar amount. So a lot of our committees will usually lean towards a direct impact to community members than building costs or things like that. So we're gonna start, do your research, always do your research. That is probably one of the biggest suggestions. And you'll kind of see, you'll hear mentions of doing research throughout. So it's not just in the early stages. You're gonna have to do research on your own project, you're gonna want to know. You're gonna have to get quotes on tearing out walls and reconstructing walls and how much your carpet's gonna be, how much your furniture is gonna be. So that's early research, but research on like the foundations that you're requesting funds from. If they don't have easy access to that information, ask. So like, what is their mission? And we'll get into that a little bit more later. But then writing your application is more than just putting the words on paper and getting data thrown in there. Especially for nonprofits, committees want to know what you guys are about. They want to know about the people that you're helping. They want to know about the people that you serve. So it's more than just data vomit on an application. So what's important to your community? And these are things like you mentioned, what's your name?
Annalise?
Annalise? Okay, so you mentioned, figuring out what your library community, what's important to them and different initiatives that they want to see. So researching that and trying to get those ideas. Well, yeah, anyhow, sorry. Should a needs assessment be conducted? So if you've got a bigger project, a higher dollar request amount, you might do a needs assessment to see how broad you want to make your project. Or if it's so broad, you need to do a needs assessment and figure out how to narrow it because you might have too big of an ask. And then, having little, like in the back of your head, kind of keeping the patterns and stories that you hear through your community. It can be localized, it can be to your library, or it could be your wider town or county. Things that you're hearing from your neighbors, anecdotal experiences that you've had, anecdotal experiences that they've had that might help spark an idea that can turn into a big project or not so big, yeah. So also having, everyone kind of does it when they walk through their own home or their own space, or maybe they see an idea on TV, but just having little pocket projects or pocket priorities, like keeping a list of little things that, man, maybe it'll only cost, and I say only, I don't mean only, but maybe it'll only cost $1,000. You don't want to apply to a big grant to ask for $1,000. Community Foundation, we only have one grant that has a minimum, $5,000 minimum, and they can go up to $100,000. But if you're asking for 2 new chairs, don't apply to that one. But, so if you have these little pocket projects and you see, not even a foundational donor, or maybe somebody just wants to do some volunteerism or donate to your agency for a specific project that you have those little pocket projects. So if somebody says, you know, what's something that you want to work on? If we could give you $1,000 today, what's something that you would do with that money right now? Just kind of have those ideas at the ready. And once they're kind of knocked off your list, move on to the next one. You never know when those kinds of opportunities are going to come up for you. So, and then as you're doing your application, think creativity before criticism. So put all the crazy ideas on there. You don't have to submit it like that. I mean, if you do, you might get a couple giggles, but put all of your crazy ideas in there and then start brainstorming how to winnow it down. And then how to fine tune it and things like that. And then be able to write it in a professionally written manner so it doesn't sound crazy. But keep the creativity in the back of your mind before you criticize your ideas. You never know who's gonna be on the committee, and maybe they're as creative as you guys are, and they visualize what you put on there. So don't criticize your project because 10 years ago, somebody said that you were weird. I don't know.
Let it go,
Yeah,
just let it go.
just don't let that possibility hinder you from asking for what you want.
So I work for the system and I'm the youth services consultant.
Okay.
And often we hear, whenever, we have workshops like this, that's for bigger libraries, or that works because it's in a bigger library and we're just a tiny little 1-person library. And what you're talking about really struck a chord with me, because what you're saying is start with that big idea and really say, how would it be manageable for me?
Yeah, exactly.
and then look for the money to do it. And I think that that's a great approach.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I think one of the beautiful things about community foundations, and I probably should have mentioned this, how many of you know what a community foundation is? That don't work at a community foundation. So I am the absolute worst at describing this as a whole. I know my portion is granting and scholarships. But we take donated funds, invest those funds, well, potentially. And then those funds get granted out into the community, to nonprofit agencies, schools, religious institutions, or government agencies. So nonprofits in that manner, public charity nonprofits, 501(c)(3)s. That is the worst Cliff Notes version. We want to expand on that.
How far out do you cover?
We don't have, our foundation, Community Foundation of Southeast Kansas doesn't have a defined geographical area. I think last year our general funds grants granted to. We granted well out, we've got someone in Caney that we grant to.
That counts, they're in our system.
Yeah. So, yeah, are you in Caney?
I am,
Oh, all right then. Caney Valley Agape?
no, but I know them, down the street, pre-K.
So we don't have a specific geographical area. Some of our funds might, some of our grant cycles might, but our agency as a whole doesn't. Now, if somebody from Wichita applied, 1,000% our committees are gonna wanna see that they are providing services to Southeast Kansas in some way. But we don't really, put a fence around our services. So I lost my thought process.
You're talking about what a community foundation.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Donated funds, and we'll talk about, agency endowments a little bit later. That'll kind of help that out a little bit. Again, not my forte. I wish I need to get better on that part of the presentation. But, so community foundations are very, I mean, it's in the name, community focused. So we want our, whatever gets donated into our community goes back into our community. So I don't wanna pick on any one particular big, nonprofit or anything like that, but some of the bigger ones, if you donate to a local chapter, you have no idea if your money is going to community, to people in your community, or how much of that is going to your community. You can be certain that if somebody is donating to a community foundation, that foundation is going to make sure the funds are granted out how you wish. And if somebody donates to, if you have a fund with your local community foundation, if somebody donates to your fund, that is for your use. There are stipulations, but that is for your use. Okay,
I have a quick question about that.
Go for it.
So if someone donates to your foundation, they can say, we want it to be used for such and such a thing?
if they can donate it to a specific fund, I don't know that they can say how that agency has to use it. The agency fund will dictate how it can be used during the establishment of the fund process. So I can't go and donate to my library's fund and say they can only use it on XYZ. That creates a
For the
paperwork.
library, but there is a specific fund for the library.
Yes. Mhm. Sure is. A lot of nonprofits will create funds with their local community foundations. And we'll touch on it a little bit more, but it adds a level of credibility to their donation. Not that the nonprofits are doing anything bad, it's just they know that there's somebody managing the funds I guess, and making sure that if they have an endowed fund, that they have access to it in perpetuity. So, okay. Context and connections. Oh, see, I missed slides. Hey, pocket projects. All right. So what's fun about your funder? Sometimes it's hard to look at a Facebook page or a Facebook account or a web page and see fun, but when you look at the projects that they fund, that's where you see it. So get to know the organization that you're requesting funds from. So you'll be able to check out their website. Again, look at projects that they funded before, so you can see, well, like right now, we have our general funds opened. General funds, youth activities. So if you're reading what you should be reading, you wouldn't apply for new signage from a new road signage from a youth activities grant application. Or if it's still maybe kind of fit in there, look at projects that have been funded and see if anything close to your project has been done. If it's a project that's close, I would still apply. And then if you get a denial, you know, don't be upset about it. Just know that, okay, it maybe didn't fall in line. So what their mission is, every nonprofit has to have a mission. Community foundations as well. I should know my mission statement, I don't. Just realized that right now. So. Then. So researching the website is particularly, I'm gonna close that door.
They're having too much fun, sorry.
So. Agencies or organizations that have one grant process, it's a little easier to glean what the mission is of that application. Community foundations, a lot of times, will have many grant processes. Sorry, you have one grant
We
process, but
just
two
have-
funders.
We have one right now,
Okay.
so we have 2 endowments that support 1 grant cycle. We don't have very many field of interest funds right now.
Okay. Yeah. So, Community Foundation has several grant cycles, and paying attention to the intent of each grant cycle will let you know whether you should apply or not. Among a lot of other information, we'll get to that also a little bit later. So. Inspiration and collaboration, what does the research show works? So do you have proven practices that you use to apply for things and you want to continue doing that? Or have you seen some outside evidence-based research that can show you another tactic for writing your grant, gathering your data, things like that? So it's really just between your staff and your board figuring out what the best way to ask for your grants and to write your grant applications. You also don't have to start from scratch. So you can collaborate with other agencies if you guys have a similar mission, or if you think of a project that is a similar mission to another nonprofit agency in your town. One thing that some of our committee members can hyper focus on, not the best word to use, but is if too many agencies are asking for the same thing. So duplication of services. We don't have enough funds to spread out to everyone, so we want, ideally, it would be awesome. So if 4 agencies are asking for clothes for a foster closet, we would kind of like those agencies to collaborate on an application together and figure out how to do it as a team. Rather than, well, they're asking for $5,000, they're asking for $6,000. Are, the individuals being served duplicating on what they're getting? So that is kind of a concern sometimes. So now this isn't necessarily like a grant ask, it could result in a grant ask, but so if you guys are doing like a children's reading session,
Summer reading program.
thank you. And you decide to cover a book on philanthropy, maybe pick an agency that a nonprofit agency in your area that can come maybe read the book to the kids, talk to them about donating to say, a domestic violence shelter. They have kiddos that come through there often. So maybe you're reading to these kiddos and say, hey, next week, we're gonna talk about philanthropy, however you want to use the word to give them the idea. So next week, when you come, find a toy that you're not playing with anymore, and we're gonna talk about how you can make somebody happy with that toy. You know, donating something, so it gets a kid early on involved in the idea of philanthropy and volunteerism and things like that. So that could be something that could grow, little ideas like that, that maybe aren't a grant ask, could grow into something bigger that could become a grant ask, and something that can create a program within your agency. So, and then, when you do collaborate with another agency, it expands your network and your reach and theirs as well. Because even though you might have a similar service, you guys don't have 100% the same reach. So, okay. Free writing. No, that's it. Okay, so watch for the grant announcements. If you have an agency that you are consistently applying to, sign up for their emails, follow their social media, things like that, follow other nonprofits in your area and see, we require publicity to be done when people are granted grants. So if they've done social media publicity, you can see where they are asking for funds. Not that you want to steal their grant opportunities from them, but it might give you ideas of other agencies that you can apply to. Maybe those agencies aren't places that your project would apply to, but anyhow. So review the applications and follow the requirements. For me, I read every single one of our applications. Scholarship applications, I had 522 applications to go through. I had to read them all. Yeah, reading that many applications and seeing that people didn't follow the instructions and they're clearly in there is kind of frustrating. I would never relay that information onto my committee members. I'm not an evaluator, but I do have to know about my agencies or my students in this case. But so make sure that you, before you apply, read what their follow-up requirements are to make sure that you are capable of providing that to them. So this is probably more going to be like bigger applications, but make sure that you're capable of giving them the data that they're going to require. So mind your calendars. So everyone lately says, you know, time is going too fast. Before you know it, you've applied, and then next thing you know, it's like, oh crud, I didn't do my publicity, I didn't take pictures, I didn't do X, Y, and Z. So put those things in your calendar. I mean, it's a cliche type suggestion, but put them in your calendar. Make sure that you have reminders set on. Put a reminder 2 months in advance, just so that you're prepared. Give your agency and your project the justice it deserves, and give the funders the respect they deserve. They're giving you free money. So, create an outline. add your schedule to it, add your different notes. I mean, are every single one of you librarians or work in a library, I think? Oh, I
There's
mean,
board meeting, or board members.
oh, okay. Outlines, librarians should know how to do an outline. So, ask the librarians. Okay. Now, so your initial revision, make sure if an agency has a certain document that they want you to use, you use it. I have on my application, I have a specific board spreadsheet that I want my applicants to use because we filter that data into another system of ours and we want it we want it how we have it. So if somebody sends it differently, it's annoying, but, I haven't turned anyone away, nor has our committee for not doing that part right, but the budget spreadsheet, we just put a very specific budget spreadsheet because our general funds applications, our process last year, we got 85 to 90 applications. And if everybody's doing a different spreadsheet or a different format for their budget, I know this is very specific to my foundation, but if everyone's using a different format, then it makes it very hard for the committee members to figure out what's going on. So we tried to simplify that for them, made a budget spreadsheet. And if people don't use the budget spreadsheet, then their application might not get considered. At the moment, we're still going to consider them, but if it becomes a consistent issue with any one agency, we'll probably have a conversation, but okay. Make sure you use documents that they're asking you to use. It's not for kicks and giggles. It's for a specific purpose. So draft through your outline. What do you want? That's your ask. What does your funder want? That's the research that you're finding out what they want in your application, what they want in your follow-ups. Do you need to provide a bibliography? More than likely not in a smaller application, but in some of the bigger ones you might. And then cite your sources. Librarians know how to do that. But if you're putting, even in smaller applications, if you put specific data in there, cite your source. I mean, it's not gonna hurt you to do so. And it definitely adds a level of professionalism to your application that you're respecting the evaluators enough to say, I did my research, here it is if you need to find it. So, and then, so attend to language. So use active voice, not passive voice. When we get this award, we're going to X, Y, Z. Don't, if we're funded, we're gonna do this or that, like try not to sound wishy-washy in your application. So, and then avoid using jargon and acronyms, or if you do, spell it out. So your community foundation, at least do it once and in parentheses, YCF, and then you can use YCF throughout the rest. But if you don't explain it, I have to do the research to find out what your acronyms mean. So, are you gonna move this line? Oh. Oh, see. Collaborative revision. Engage other readers. Somebody completely unfamiliar with what you might be asking for. Oh, I wager to say most people know what a library is, but they might not know specifics about the project that you're asking. So get somebody else to read your application and see if they understand it. If they have questions, then you might want to answer those questions in your application. But get lay people to read your application and make sure it makes sense. So unfamiliar readers and proofreaders, get your best friend that corrects you when you use the wrong your. I'm that best friend. Sorry. But get that person to read your application and make sure that you use the right grammar. And then verify your application against the follow-up documentation. So are you going to be able to provide what they want? So. Next question. What data does your agency collect that would be relevant to grant requests? Anyone? Do you have any specific data that you can provide or any,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we tend to cite, school lunch program to show poverty.
Mhm.
In the. Within our, like, how many people use us, what demographics do we have in our community? The number of people that we serve in a year, to show busyness.
Yeah.
Of the library.
very specifically the number of people served? Our application asks, how many do you anticipate needing served? And the follow-up says, how many did you serve? Is that number 100% possible to get every time? Probably not, especially if you do an event. You're not standing there with a clicker, counting every single person, but you have an idea of how many people registered for your event, whatever. But the number of people served, that's, I have several committees that will say, man, $10,000 for 5 people, no, we can't do that.
So return on investment.
Yep.
Is something that you guys are looking at. That
Mhm.
you're-
Very much so. Usually when it's kind of an imbalance like that is when it's more of a concern, but, I feel like I hear it at least once per cycle. Okay. Data, it is important. If you don't provide the data, it's probably gonna be pretty hard to convince somebody that you're gonna do the follow-up documentation. So I know not every grant funder has their follow-up documentation included. You can ask for it, what types of things that they're gonna require on their follow-up. On my applications, if somebody is awarded in their agreement form, before they sign and submit their agreement form, the evaluation form is embedded in that. But even if it's not put right there in front of your face, you can ask. So I would never be offended if somebody reached out to me and said, what are the things I'm gonna have to provide? In fact, I would probably download a copy of an evaluation form and send it to them. So, know where to find the information. So you mentioned your school lunch program. Finding that information, you can usually get, data from your city website, things like that, if you feel like that data is necessary or would be helpful to your application. So know where you can find data sources.
You can find a lot of, like statistics and stuff. If you go to KSEE, like the Kansas Department of Education gives you, building grade cards for school districts. So it tells you how many students are enrolled and how many are in free and reduced lunch and even like, other statistics that you can use.
Is it in languages too?
Mhm.
Yeah, so.
And
That's a-
language is spoken, so.
That's an awesome resource. That's an awesome resource. If you do any projects that are wellness related, your health department will have a lot of statistical data within their webpage somewhere. Community engagement, you can get anecdotal data. It doesn't have to be word for word bullet point from the health department. You can get anecdotal data. You can do surveys at your events. So if you had an event last year, you wanna apply for that same event this year. You wanna tell the grant committee why it was useful to your committee, have surveys. So, and then, so the data doesn't tell the entire story. And I'm gonna steal a story from an old presentation. But if somebody is requesting a broken fence to be funded, they can put the data, they can put the cost of the fence, But if they just put the numbers in there, that doesn't tell the story why it's important. Why it's important is last month, a little kid got out of the broken gate and ran out into the street and almost got hit by a car. That's gonna sell not that you're trying to sell your project, but you are. And committees want to know why. Why do you want this? So it's not just numbers, it's the story too. Oh my gosh, I just. Make sure your information and your data is organized. So one thing that's personally kind of frustrating is, so we ask people to, tell us how they spent the funds that were used in their follow-up form. Now, there is a part up at the top of their form that says, how many people did you serve? But in your narrative, your budget narrative, if like breaking the information, I don't wanna have to go back and forth and keep looking at different things to decipher your forms and your applications and things like that. Put it easy to find. And that's gonna be, better facts and details in quick reach, make for stronger, more compelling grant proposals. So if I can get all the data in one narrative like that and not have to be confused, the job of the evaluator isn't to interpret your application, it's to take it at face value, and you wanna make sure that face value is right. Okay,
How would you suggest showcasing data when the way that, backstory? I moved in as the director, after the last director about a year ago. And my way of taking data and so forth is different from theirs, as I felt that the way that they were doing it was a little too generous, in terms of the numbers being counted.
okay,
How would I showcase that data off when I don't think that the numbers are exactly accurate based on past years?
that's really difficult, and I would probably ask your board how they would suggest you move forward with that. My initial suggestion. Or that's number one suggestion. Number two, if you don't have somebody easily accessible to talk with, I would go ahead and report the numbers that your predecessor had.
Mhm.
And then once you start building your own numbers, start inputting your own numbers. But I still don't particularly like that exactly. Especially if you feel they're dishonest, but you don't know they're dishonest.
Exactly.
Okay. So I would talk with your board, and see what they think, maybe your treasurer. And see what they think, but next available option, report what your predecessor had.
Okay.
And then build your numbers, your own numbers. So that's unfortunate. Yeah. Bobbin?
No, it's unfortunate, but it's pretty common.
It's pretty common.
Okay. If you were reviewing applications, what would be something that you would prioritize?
Repairing the building.
Oh, doesn't matter what the application is for, but if you're reading applications, what would be something that you would look at and that would be important for you to see in an application?
Whether or not what they're asking for means what you're asking.
Okay,
Clarity and specificity.
yeah, okay.
But those requirements,
Say it again.
budget requirements, that they're within what you're allowed to do.
Okay, good.
Maybe how much of an improvement the funds will be able to provide.
Okay, all of those, really, really good. Okay, so the evaluation process is very subjective. But there's a reason that most committees have multiple people. So just. I could get 5 of my committee members up here from a different committee. And each one of them are gonna have something different that they're gonna wanna see on an application. And that's what's, I mean, that's what's good about having multi-member things, that people are gonna look at things differently. So. Does your project align with the grant funder's mission? Again, if it's a youth activities grant, don't ask for billboard signs. If your project kind of fits the vision, make sure if you feel that it's worth putting the application in, make sure your application sells that idea. Don't church it up. Sorry if that was offensive. Don't make it sound. Don't exaggerate. There we go. Perfect. Don't exaggerate. But if you have a women's health application and you're asking for, I don't know, a heart monitor, could men benefit from that? 1000%. But tell the data of how many women you'd be serving with that. So make sure it fits the mission. Board representation. This is another one that I hear a lot out of my committees is lack of local board representation. That's not really an easy thing to remedy if you don't have local board representation. So you're going to have to make sure that the rest of your application tells what you do for that committee. So even though you know, all your board members are 100 miles away, however, be able to outline how you do what you do for your community. The agency mission, so, it kind of in line with the funder's mission, but is your mission in alignment with the grant mission? Are we delving into project creep? So building wildly outside of your original mission just to get grant funding. I mean, I wouldn't think a lot of people in the nonprofit sphere are not going to do the projects that they're asking for, but maybe they aren't the best people to ask for those projects. Maybe it's somebody else's field to ask for that. And then publicity and social media. A lot of my committee members will look at your social media and what publicity you've done. And if you're not very good at it, at least if I've had to tell people, hey, make sure you do X, Y, Z. Or if you're, make sure you're representing again in your social media, what you are doing for your community. So, maybe you're newer or you don't have a lot of outward facing projects that you do or services that you do. Go to your chamber coffees, go to, community events and things like that, networking events. Do those things, as scary as it can be to walk into someplace and not know anybody there. Eventually you will. And you're not the only one there that doesn't know somebody. So, I hated going to my chamber coffees. Because I felt like I just kind of stood there and like, okay, but eventually I started recognizing people and now I'm able to go and have conversations and meet new people and things like that. So go do those things, make yourself known in your community, because that's going to end up rolling over into some of the committee members or you'll talk to a friend of the committee member, something like that. Make it known what you're doing for your community. Budget and funding. Budget clarity. This is one of my personal pet peeves, is saying we're gonna make 20 hygiene packets. We're gonna make 20 hygiene packets. That's their budget. That's what it says for $100. What's in it? What is in the hygiene packet? So you've got all of the different elements. Put your line items down. make it so they don't have to interpret what you are asking for. Another thing too with budget clarity, if a committee doesn't have or clearly or basically just doesn't want to fund your whole project, they might give you a directive on what you can use the funds for. So, you know, if you requested new library shelves and a selection of new books, maybe they don't want to fund the shelves, but they want to fund the books. So make sure you give them the opportunity to at least give you partial funding. Partial funding, I didn't even know unused funds. So if you are granted $3,000, you found an amazing deal and you were able to buy everything that was on your list for $2,500. Before you just go ahead and spend that extra money, ask. Reach out to, if you applied through a community foundation, reach out to myself, reach out to Elena, you know, that type of a situation. From there, it might have to go to the committee to ask if the committee is okay with that change, or the foundation might be able to make that decision themselves. But don't just go spend money without asking. I will say for us, if somebody was able to find a sale, a really good deal, whatever went on sale in between the time that they wrote their application, we like to make sure that they are rewarded as long as their idea for the purchase spending of the rest of the money aligns with the original application. So not just a completely different project. Some committees, I have some of my cycles, some of my committees, I can't just make a unilateral decision, go ahead and spend it. They want that ask. They want to make that decision. And I've had committees ask for their money back or whatever's left. So, unfortunately, if the item that you're requesting goes up, most committees aren't going I wouldn't ask for more money. I would try to figure out how to get it elsewhere. And then incomplete follow-up tasks. So there's a deadline to get your follow-up evaluations done, your project evaluations. And if you don't get them done before the committee meets for the next year, I tell my committees, well, this project, they're asking for another grant, but they haven't done their evaluation form yet. There are things that can hinder a project from getting completed. So those are always things personally that I take in mind. That's again, a benefit of a community foundation. Everybody that applies for a grant from our community foundation, I'm their contact person. So I'm the person that reads their evaluation forms. I'm the one that relays the information to the committees. So I'm their person. So if something happened and they couldn't get their project completed on time, they're probably going to be able to get some grace as long as they talk with me. So, okay. Has an application you've submitted been denied? Anyone? Did you ask why?
Yeah, I had one where one committee member said my calculations were off. I couldn't see where, but I said, okay. And then I had one of this in the same thing, said that what I was, the product I was requesting could, they didn't feel could be, washed well enough. And then and then in that same group, I had one that stated it was a good idea, but they didn't know that it would be that well of a thing. You know, so I got.
Okay, so you got some feedback though?
I got some feedback and, you know, and so I was like, oh.
So, I mean, if you apply for like a Walmart grant or something, if they give you feedback, God bless you, on your, denial letter, if they give you feedback, that's probably the only feedback you're gonna get. I don't know who you would, reach out to in bigger corporations. To get feedback on why you were declined, but again, Community Foundation, tight knit. I'm the person, so I know most of the time why an application was denied. But also most of the time, I'm gonna tell you in a denial letter. So, just recently, we have an at-risk youth process. It just got completed, and there were, I mentioned earlier that we don't typically fund capital improvement, things like that, and for whatever reason, we had 3 applications in one cycle that were capital improvement, and hey, you got denied, whatever, it definitely sounds much actually that. The committee decided to go, and I didn't even say we don't typically fund capital improvement, but due to the available funds, the committee chose to award more programmatic applications rather than capital improvement. And then the same cycle, we had a bunch of events and some fundraisers. They decided to go more programmatic than event related. So I try to tell my applicants why they were denied. Sometimes it was just a bad application. I have to walk carefully on that one and tell them it was a bad application, but not be mean. I mean, I'm not gonna be mean, but finding good ways of telling people
Having that.
yeah, you're, so this is good with relation to, your research prior to applying. Same fund, we had $20,600 available, almost $20,700. And an agency asked for $20,000. And their budget was very not clear. This program and materials, 5,000, this program, 5,000, this 5,000, no information. And then I can't remember the other thing, but it was, so make sure that you're researching, your project aligns with the available, or your ask aligns with the available funds. Needs to be more budget clarity, things like that. So I do try to tell people. So. I don't know where I'm at right now.
There are some grants that have between $50,000 and $300,000, right?
Yeah.
Do you recommend shooting for somewhere in the middle, with exactly what you need, asking for the moon?
I mean, I would ask for what you need, maybe a little bit, maybe add some of the extraneous things, and the committee can partially fund. I would, in your budget, I would not order your itemization in order of most expensive to least. I would order it in order of priority. So what's the most important? So, your $200 items might be more important than your $1,000 items. So put them in order of priority. I feel like that's pretty general. So, and then, if there is a question, will you accept partial funding? Explain, yes, these are our priority items. So, give them the opportunity to give you partial funding. Okay. So post award, you've been funded, now what? So sometimes, this is where the work is just beginning, depending on your project. So make sure that, one, don't, every single bit of this, don't wait till the last minute. So if you've got a construction project, goodness knows, your first quote, the guy decided he can't do it. The second quote, he decides, well, since you're first, I didn't mean to flip you off. Since, since your first guy can't do it, you're desperate, so they're gonna increase their quote. So maybe the third guy can do it, but he can't do it for a month past what you originally expected, so there could be delays. So make sure that you're not waiting, not pushing things off, because Murphy's Law, if it can happen, it will. Okay, then document your journey, pictures. And even in an application, provide pictures from previous projects, provide pictures of previous things that you've done, things like that. That is gonna tell your evaluators more than your words can sometimes, but after you've been awarded, take pictures of your items getting delivered, take pictures of, I have ideas for confidentiality, but take pictures of kiddos helping you put things together. Or just your community helping you put your project together, and then take pictures of it in use. So, but just document things along the way. So, and again, pay attention to the follow-up requirements, tasks, instructions, and due dates. So,
I think one of the things that trip up some of our tiniest little libraries is they apply for and then receive multiple grants.
Mhm.
And managing each one of those is a time commitment.
yeah,
And figuring out how to manage a grant, if you've never done it before, can take a little time as well. So I think it's something worth mentioning, because it's something to consider. What is your time? Availability to manage multiple grant awards, because it can get your
Free money's not free.
exactly.
I would also say too, like, part of the post award should be, and like you do this with maybe some of the pre-work too. Once the grant is done and you've bought all this stuff, what are you gonna do with it? Like, where are you going to put it? How are you going to store it? Is it something that we can keep using for this program, or is it something that we can use for future programs?
Mhm.
I think that's also part of like the after work is like, okay, we did this one program, but we have stuff left over, what do we do
Right.
with it?
yeah. We have, some of our grant cycles that won't, grant if it's not a continuous program. So they consider whether the ask is something that can be reusable. So that is definitely a consideration during the evaluation process is, hopefully that has been thought of. And most people, if they intend it to be a continuous program, they make sure to explain that, so. But yeah, what you plan on doing with your materials and things, so, yeah.
Get any equipment? We got this doc grant. It's like, that's one of my first questions. What are we gonna do with 6? You know, whatever it is, widgets, something you just bought
Well,
when you were done with
we're
them.
cleaning out all of our closets, and so I'm like, this is all stuff that we probably got from like Nair or something, and it's like, why do we still have it? We're not using it. Get rid of it.
Some grants dictate how you can dispose of it,
Yeah.
as well.
Huh. I might have questions after this.
Yeah, like, can you sell it, or do you have to regift it or give it to another charitable organization?
If it's within 5 years of the end of your project.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm learning things too. Okay, so partial funding, it's not a failure. Literally not a failure. Like I said, our current grant cycle that's getting ready to get evaluated, there's $87,000 available and there was $175,000 asked. They literally could not, even if every single project was worthy, they can't give 100% funding for each. So some of the projects might get full funding, other ones it is guaranteed other ones are gonna get partial funding. And I'm seeing a lot more partial funding now more than ever. I say that like I've been with the agency forever and ever. I've been there since March last year, but I've been able to see the difference. So, and that's why I've said multiple times, give them an avenue to give you partial funding. Make sure you're very clear in your budget. So sometimes they might not have a directive for how you can use it. Just use it as you see fit. You asked for 5,000, here's 2,500. Use it as you see fit. But other times they might have specifics for how they want you to direct those funds.
For the one that we just got, they asked us, it's like, well, we can't give you the full amount. Rework your budget and show us what, what would you cut?
Yeah.
So we were given that opportunity.
Good. We just had a new grant cycle this year, and the committee didn't know how they wanted to make their criteria. Medical, this is the one that has the $5,000 minimum, $100,000 maximum. And we didn't know. We didn't know a lot of criteria, except that it had to be medical related. And one agency, she said, well, we've got a bunch of different projects. And I was like, I mean, apply for all of them. I don't know. So she did. Unfortunately, the ask was wild, not hers, the overall ask was wildly outside of what we thought. And in that evaluation meeting, the committee decided on some criteria that they were gonna stick within some certain boundaries. And this particular one was outside of the boundaries. But they had to put some limitations. So unfortunately, yes, she did apply, but because she had multiple projects prior to the evaluation, I reached out, put them in order. Which, if they can only give you $20,000, put them in order. I want them to know which one's the most important to you. So, okay, so partial funding, not a failure. So denials. Please don't stop applying. Please don't stop. Every one of our nonprofit agencies, our libraries for sure, but every one of our nonprofit agencies is doing something for the committee. And just because your project wasn't chosen for funding, doesn't mean it wasn't worthy. And it doesn't mean that what you do isn't worthy. So, if you don't get funded, community outreach, can be a good way. Crowdfunding, local fundraisers, things like that. Those can be ways to get your project funded. And your committee will see that you're committed to them. And then there's a chance that your community will see that you're committed to them. Is that how I said it? Okay.
That's
Okay, so, and then the committee could see it for next year. Like, man, they didn't get funded, but they made sure that project happened. So, and then, a story, so a denial that kind of turned into a positive. One of our local agencies, I'm not bad mouthing. If she was up here telling you the story, she would say the exact same thing. Our Women's Health Fund grant does not fund disposable items. They asked for a load of period products, disposable. They got denied because of that. And she would stand up here. I didn't read the criteria. So, but after she got denied and got her reason, it was a networking thing. She talked to somebody who talked to somebody, and she ended up getting her entire project and more funded by I Support the Girls. It's a nationwide agency that funds undergarments, period products, hygiene products, things like that. So now she has a permanent connection with this group because she got denied, where this project would have given her one grant, but now she's got a continual connection to this agency and has that continual support from them. So, her denial turned into a better situation. And this particular, grant, they did fund reusable period products. So it was kind of a, like, here's proof, they will fund that, just not disposables. So, okay. How would you adjust some of the more advanced steps and data points to accommodate? I probably should have taken this one out. I am so sorry. Kind of how you mentioned, like, start big, winnow down. So you don't have to be a big foundation or a big agency. You don't have to have more than one person. You can, again, be creative, put your whole project out there, put it down on paper and scale it down. So
Do you have grant cycles that will fund additional staff?
we do not. We do not, and I think Patterson is just community foundations, aren't they? Don't they? No. Yeah, I'm not sure who would fund staff. So. Sorry. You could potentially start with volunteers and be able to. Sell the, like,
I think libraries are really good at volunteers and figuring out who in the community has the time and opportunity. We're pretty good at that. Maybe we could improve in like the opportunities to volunteer and listing those out. But we really could use extra hands, especially in summer months.
Gotcha.
And so we really struggle with how to fund them.
I think a lot of nonprofit agencies have staffing issues, and I wish I had a good answer for you. I have a couple of pet projects that I would like my foundation to start doing, and low-key staffing is one of them. Not like a whole, like, director position or anything like that, but that's one of them, and scholarships that are for trades. That's another pet project of mine, so.
Agency endowments and fund staff. Agency endowments, our community foundations can use to fund staff
If it's written in the
and the fund.
established, yeah.
Yeah,
So, it would be best to not bank on that immediately, because it
yeah, because it takes a long
It takes a
time.
while to build it up.
You know,
I just filled out a Patterson application. I think that what I just filled out did include staff hours. May not have been an additional position, but I believe there were staff hours included in. So it was like, what was it, Sharon, that expanding community opportunities? Anyway,
You could use indirect funds for that though, too, couldn't you? If a
Yes.
grant would have
Innovation.
indirect funds.
That's what we do,
Yes.
is, yeah, all of our funding matches for SEK are for salaries.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like,
That.
you're
Oh, I
already
don't
one of
think
my
any
employees.
of ours are. If they are, I do not know about it.
Yeah, that's how we're doing.
So, since you brought that up, so that you can't so grants can where. If you're having something like for my case, because I'm a school, we have an after-school program or an evening program. And our teachers volunteer to work it, because it's after their contract time. We can use that as competitive.
Not if they're not getting paid. So in my case, like Tammy's time and her position is a match for the work that she's doing for the Family Engagement Public Libraries grant. Darren's time as the technology consultant will be used as in time for the doctorate.
So I guess where my question was coming now, what I'm saying is that in our district, if you work past your contract time, you get paid.
Yes, then
And
that could be,
so-
that could be.
So if the school district can show that's their policy, then it can be used as part of the
As long as the grant allows it.
ones that.
Some grants will allow that, but some grants are very restrictive on what they allow as cash match.
Okay. I'm Elena Stifler. I work with Your Community Foundation here in Iola. We do basically the same thing as the Southeast Kansas Community Foundation. We're just much smaller capital wise and, employee wise. I'm the only employee. So today I'm gonna be talking about our community grant cycle, which is our only grant cycle. But we do also do the agency endowments as well. And we have a match month, which I believe Kara's gonna talk about later in the presentation. But so our mission statement is to improve the quality of lives. We in 3 counties. We do Allen County, Woodson County, and Anderson County. But Anderson County does now have the Garnett Community Foundation. So mainly our focus is on the Woodson and Anderson. For the specific grant cycle, it's only Allen County at the moment. And that's just because our donors are not located in any county other than Allen County. So we don't feel it'd be fair to our donors if their money's not going towards the geographic region that they live in. So we do our date, the date for our grant cycle is actually coming up. It starts July 1st and it's gonna be 2 months till September 1st. And then grants will be awarded in October. We're not giving a specific date on that. Most likely early. Oh, sorry. Most likely early in October, but no specific date on that. It's just gonna be whenever our board can meet we don't have a grants committee. Our grants committee is just our board of directors. So it's just gonna be when our board can meet to decide on the grants. The typical amount is 500 to 5,000 per project. So we usually do 10,000 to 20,000 per year. Last year we did 15,000. And depending on funding, we're hoping to do on the higher end. But yeah, between 10,000 and 20,000. I will say like some tips on how to get funded from us. We mostly do partial funding since we're a smaller community foundation. We want your application to be very detailed. We had a couple applications that were not detailed and we didn't even really consider them. And if you do apply for higher than the 5,000, since we're low on funding, it's really not likely that we're gonna consider your project less if you apply for higher than 5,000. Since we typically do right in the middle of that at 2,500. The application has to be complete. We don't consider incomplete applications. And so I put on here, we have 2 ways to apply. It's gonna be, we have a new way through a Google form, or we have an application form on our website, which is at the bottom here, thegivingmakesadifference.com, and then / apply for a grant with the dashes in between. So yeah, Google form or application form, and then we have the attachments that we need to go along with the application. On the Google form, the attachments, they're all listed on the bottom at the end of the form. But for the application form, I don't think they are, but we have an application instructions form on our website as well. That's gonna explain everything that you need. And so, yeah, if you're gonna apply, I would look at the application instructions. They're pretty detailed, so they will explain everything that we need. There are a couple things that we ask for on top of these required documents. But they're optional, so I did not put them on here. And then lastly, the QR code is our mailing address, or our emailing list, I mean. This is gonna be grant updates. I have it separated between our donors and nonprofits, so you're not gonna be getting, if you did sign up for it, you're not gonna be getting frequent emails. It's just once a month on grant opportunities. Our grant cycle is mentioned in a lot of the emails, our match month, updates on the dates and the stipulations of the match month. And then I also started recently adding other grants onto the bottom of the emails. Like for example, the Southeast Kansas Community Foundation. I track their grant cycles and I put links to their grants on the emails as well. So if you want to sign up for that, that's always an option to stay up to date on our grant cycle. And then this year, we started doing seed funding for endowments during our grant cycle. So you can apply to be able to start an endowment with us to participate in the match fund. So if an agency endowment is what you're interested in, but you don't have the funding to be able to start one, then you can apply for a grant for it from us. But it would have to be with our foundation, not another foundation. Our application process is very simple compared to other community foundations. Since we're so small, we require less, but we also fund majority of the projects that are applied for. Last year we've funded 75% of the applications that we received. So it's a good, if you apply, you're likely to get some sort of funding. But we do, in the past, we have prioritized, like we do building renovations, we can grant to that, we can grant for just capital things, operational expenses. But we do prioritize usually youth projects or health projects. And then this year, I'm gonna guess that we have prioritization on the starting endowments, since that's newer. And then Kara talked about unused funding. We asked with our foundation that unused grant funding is returned to us. So I wanted to mention that. And yeah, that's it.
So, yeah, every agency is gonna be different and have different requirements, different requests, things like that. So, it's very important to do your research on them.
You're out of Pittsburgh, we're Allen and Woodson,
Yeah.
Fredonia, but Coffeyville, right?
Has a foundation.
Has a foundation,
Independence
Fredonia has a foundation,
Barnett House one.
Garnet has one, who else?
Independence, Parsons,
Independence first one as well.
so there are a lot. And we have 3 affiliate foundations under us.
Coffeyville's one, we're just on your website.
Coffeyville? Gerard, Columbus. Maybe Columbus you're thinking?
Maybe.
Gerard, Columbus and Fort Scott. So we run a grant cycle for them. We do all of their like bookkeeping. We issue out the checks and stuff when their grants are funded or grants are awarded. And then each of them has scholarship funds as well. So we host their scholarship applications on our website as well.
Is there a search option through that Kansas Association of Community Foundations?
Yeah.
page?
There is.
What's that?
It's KCF.
KCF.org? That is KC,
From-
I thought I had more letters.
That's the abbreviation, is KCF.
KACF,
Yeah.
okay, so. Cause there might be something out in Chautauqua, the western half of our southeast Kansas, so I just.
We've granted out to Chautauqua County. And we do have a big grant cycle that should be hopefully opening up next year. It's specifically for ag granting, but so there's that. I was gonna look up okay, so CFSEK specific, I'm gonna walk you through some of our resource documents, but like I said, they are specific to CFSEK. We have them on our website for people to download wanted to, and they could be used as a resource to apply for other grants. But they're specific to us. So again, start early. Can't emphasize that enough. Make sure you read the instructions, even if you've applied for a particular grant or from a particular agency 100 times, read the instructions. They may have changed something. So, for our applications, I'm always trying to make sure that our questions and processes are universally understood. So if I see something that's continuously done maybe incorrectly, then if it's done more than a few times, I'm probably gonna assume it's my application question or my ask, and not the person. So I try to make sure I'm accommodating of those things. Any new grant funds are gonna have their own set of instructions, their own set of criteria, things like that. So make sure if you see new grants pop up on any one particular, like agency that you frequent, read everything you can. So I think collectively, community foundations specifically don't really want the application process to be harder. We want our communities to benefit from the funds that we have. So we don't want to eliminate applications for silly reasons, but it might get to the point that if two projects are head to head and they can't decide what they want to do with this last $5,000, that this application didn't fill out their budget right, maybe they'll give it to the other person. It hasn't happened, but it could. Again, make sure you proofread and make sure you're not using old information that like you copied from an old application or something. Make sure your information is up to date. And make sure that, so Community Foundation of Southeast Kansas, our general funds grant is broken down into 3 different processes. So right now we have 3 applications open. So make sure you're applying for the right one. And then if you name a grant in your application, I wouldn't suggest it. If you name a grant, make sure you're naming the right grant. I have seen those.
Copy paste, oops, forgot to update that.
Right? Yep, I have seen applications get denied because of that. So, even though it might be a simple oopsie, if you didn't take the time to proofread, it does come across disrespectful. Proofread again, bad grammar, sentence structure, that can be confusing and you don't want evaluators to interpret what you're trying to say. You want them to take your application at face value. So also, if you make them interpret it, they could be wrong. And you could get less or none. So, clear budget. Break it down. If you know, if a line item encompasses multiple things, make it multiple line items. Only include relevant budget items. Our budget spreadsheet, I'll show it to you. It's just ours. Somebody could copy it and use it if they wanted to, I don't care, but we have it, the items you're asking for, or the items that are part of your request, and then a separate section where you can put staffing and volunteerism, volunteer work and things like that, to put some of the extraneous things that are part of it, but not the actual ask. So don't muddy up your application and say that your project is a $300,000 project because you put your director and 7 employees on there. When you're only asking for $5,000. Check your application before the due date. If an application is digital, if it's online on some platform, the business day before your application is due, make sure, or even the business day on the day it's due, get on that website and make sure your application says submitted. Technology is the best thing, and then at the same time, sometimes it's the worst. Make sure it says submitted. Okay, and then this is probably organization wide, but like for some of the smaller agencies, make sure you know what their staffed hours are. I don't work on holidays or weekends, so if an application closes on Saturday, I'm not here to help. I'm not super amenable to help on the last couple of days anyways. I will, but I don't like it.
You'll resent it.
Yeah. And I have tried to think of a nicer way to say this, but honestly, it doesn't really warrant nicer. An emergency on your part does not constitute an emergency on my part. I still have a job that I have to do. And a lot of other people that already submitted applications, so don't wait till the last minute, please. I'm sure that is relevant for anything that you do. Okay, so make sure you know what their open hours are. We also close at 4:30, so if you call after 4:30, I ain't there, more than likely. And then another tip, if you're asking, if you apply for grants from multiple different agencies, create a grant document sites file on your computer for a YCF granting, for CFSEK granting, because I have a specific form that I want you to use for certain things, so you can just save it in there and not have to panic looking for it, but then they have something else that they're using, or Walmart wants this, or Tractor Supply wants this. Have a specific file folder where you can store all of the documents that a specific agency might want and update them as needed. Oh, I missed one, just.
There's the avoid AI, which is about lunch.
Yes, avoid AI, please. Committees want to hear your project from your voice. They do not want 4 projects coming in that sound the same because somebody plugged them into Claude AI. Now, have somebody proofread, you know, or put it into AI to proofread, but do your narratives yourself. I mean, I don't want to read something that was written by a computer. You guys are your best storytellers. You guys are your own experts, so you know better than you can plug into than a computer can pop out. So please write your own essays. Give your application that justice and give the funders that respect. Take that time.
This- Tammy brought this up in the training we did with 2021. Do all of your writing in Word
Mhm.
or in Google Docs, so that all you're doing when you're getting ready to submit is copying and
Yep.
pasting.
I tell my scholarship applicants to do that. I don't think they do, but.
They're just writing it free flow in
Yes.
the online app.
So,
Then
We don't see how people can do it in Word.
No, on just. Google.
Oh, yeah.
well, these are scholarship applicants, so.
They haven't had a real disaster.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, like
Oh.
one mistake and
Yeah.
whole thing.
Go on, yeah.
so, okay, I'm gonna show you a few of our,
I would also say, if you're submitting anything electronically, keep your documentation for that, like, print out the page that it was submitted and when and what time.
Yeah.
That saved me when I had to fax stuff from a printer before, and they didn't receive it, so I wasn't getting funded. Guess what? We did get funded because I saved the documentation.
so. I have the capability of, if somebody submits an application, but if I pre-read it before the cycle closes and something doesn't make sense or whatever, I can put it back in draft for that person But if they don't see my email telling them that I put it back in draft. I very much try not to do that when it gets really close to the close date, but, what happens, that's, again, make sure you look a day or two before. Make sure it's submitted. Okay, I'm gonna run through a few of our documents. I'll do it quickly just to kind of give you an idea of what could be out there. Or you can use ours as a guideline. So we have a checklist of the different types of documentation that you might need. Based off of your nonprofit status. I'm gonna guess libraries mostly are under their government, their city government. That already are. I've got a couple that aren't, and it's kind of confusing, and some of them do get 501c3s. So whichever, just choose the correct one and provide the correct information, associated information. And then I have some other supporting documentation, so again, photos of previous projects, things like that, a lot of our evaluators, man, they appreciate a picture, especially if you're like asking for a piece of equipment. Either the picture or a link to the picture or a description of what, like the full name of what the item is so that they can go look it up. Quotes, if you're basing your request off of a quote that you got from somebody, put the quote in there so that they can see that you were serious about getting your quote at least. And then I have definitions and again, what documentation would be required for nonprofit statuses. Again, 501c3 public charities, educational institutions, government agencies, and religious institutions. And then people can use fiscal sponsors. So if a group isn't maybe a bookstore, a local bookstore wants to do some kind of volunteer event or something, and they can ask you to be a fiscal sponsor for them potentially, but it would be you taking on the responsibility of accepting the funds for them and making sure that they're spending it right and getting their project done.
Do you guys look at foundations?
Profitable does, you said,
You don't have a
foundation yet, of course not. Yeah.
Someday.
Now this is my budget that I kind of mentioned, so. All of the spaces with color are locked, so people can't move them around, but. This is where we want your actual expenses, and then this is where so maybe, I don't know, you have $45,000. But when you put, maybe you've got some donations or some in-kind, things like that, or. You budgeted for a portion of it, so agency budget, things like that. So you've got $100,000 project here, but $95,000 of it is already paid. Also, committees like to see that you already have an investment in a project. That's huge. They like to see that you have somebody else invested in your project. So then for community foundation request, they're gonna put right here. So. And then photos. Why do photos matter? One, we want to see proof that you used the money how you said you were gonna use it. But two, I love seeing pictures when can be very boring to be reading through evaluation forms. When I get to see the pictures of the little kids in their backpacks and like running around like crazy people, all of those things, like I love it. It depends on the picture and the agency, whether we can use their pictures as publicity, but, so I provide, ideas if confidentiality is not a concern. And then if confidentiality is a concern, because we require pictures. It doesn't matter if you have confidentiality, there are ways to get pictures taken that don't violate confidentiality. You don't even have to have your clients in the picture, but, but if you are posting some of your pictures, or if we're allowed to, if we're allowed to use your pictures in our publicity, it's showing what you guys are doing for your communities. I don't know about you guys, we have a horrific group in Pittsburgh, Kansas, called the Citizens of Pittsburgh. I'm gonna call them out. They post some of the most vile things. They're awful. They're completely awful. They hate every social service agency in town because we're enabling homeless people. I won't get
We have
any
that.
more into that, but
We have it here.
Yeah, Cockerville has a picture.
I'm sure every community has, yeah.
Why help people?
Yeah. So. Again, with the publicity as well as the photos, drown out those voices. If somebody is on there posting hateful things, I am a member or follower of that page, but just so I can pay attention to the things that they are complaining about. I got into discourse once and that will never happen ever again, ever in my life. I made my mistake. So, focus on the impact. So if you are able in a way to show your project in use with your clients using it, do it. Show it in use. But if you can only take a picture of a bookshelf with a bunch of books that you purchased or materials set out for a program that you're doing, do that. Is it the biggest impact? No, but it still shows how your project is done. Use good quality photos yeah. And then if you're an agency that has to maintain confidentiality and you send or post your own pictures, make sure you get consent from the people that you're posting. And then some sample photos. It doesn't come across very well. This one maintain confidentiality because it's kiddos from behind, but they're at some outdoor event. Bike donations, you can't tell, but I blacked out the kids' faces. A present drive, Coffeyville got monitors. I don't know who they're to. Dream Big Little One, they buy beds for kids in need, school supplies, shoes. I mean, there's all kinds of things. Gordon Parks Museum. And this, that's not I found a picture. I didn't put that together myself, but a packet of toiletries to hand out. Publicity, why it matters. We want to drown out the negative voices. It's not just for our benefit as a community foundation to say, look what we gave money for. You want your community to know what you're doing for them. We want our community to know what you guys are doing for them. And then a little selfishly, if you're talking about us, somebody in the future might create a fund with us. And that fund will directly help our community more. So if you guys are posting about what you're doing, maybe they could create a fund that directly helps your agency. So, or maybe they could donate to your fund if you create an agency fund. So, and then, so again, we have specific requirements. Wait until we posted before you post, please. And then make sure that you are acknowledging the agency that provided the grant, but also the funder of the grant. So again, we've got 11 different cycles. I felt that's not accurate. It might be. Anyways, so we want you to say, we received a grant from the Community Foundation of Southeast Kansas from the L-Makers at-Risk Youth Grant Fund. So it says which fund covered it. Tag whichever agency is granting you money. If you're posting on social media, but also publicity doesn't have to be social media. Maybe you don't have a social media account. Props. But also if you have a book drive, you can make posters and have posters that have all of this information on it. Just make sure that you take pictures and provide it. If you're giving away care packages, to kiddos, put tags on there that show this information. So it doesn't always have to be social media. Social media is probably the most widespread source of publicity. You can, put stories in the newspaper, things like that, so. And then we have a blurb of what we would like the publicity to say, yeah. Follow our accounts, that's optional, but follow them, helps us. But it also helps you guys because you'll get to see what we're posting and when new things are happening. Logo usage, things like that. Oh, we have an annual celebration that we ask grant recipients to attend. Do you guys do anything like that? I don't know how long we've been doing it, but, okay. Before today, and you'll learn more, but how many of you know what an agency fund is? All right, okay, so, an agency fund is a sustainable financial future for your nonprofit mission. So. Where are my notes? So sorry. So how they're established. You first make contact. You're gonna have a set amount of dollars that you're going to allocate to this fund. There's paperwork to be done, figuring out how you would like it invested. The money does get invested, and there's a certain percent, I think it's a 5% average over 3 years that from the investment growth, that's not the right word, but so people can make contributions to it, you can make contributions yourself to it. But after it's been invested for a certain amount of time, and for us, there's a minimum amount that you can invest. There is a fee for agency endowments. But typically, if you have that minimum amount, that helps cover the fee, the investment, what's the word?
What's the minimum amount? You mean it's something that people go through you and set up an agency endowment through your foundation?
They could, yeah.
It's like the library endowment. Luckily,
what the
ours
minimum
was started
amount is?
earlier, because now we have what, $10,000 minimum?
Yeah, well, we do have the $10,000 minimum, but recently we've been making exceptions. So our board of director just needs to vote on that, and we can do 3,000 as the official minimum, the absolute minimum.
I might be getting scholarships and grants mixed up. I think grants are $10,000. You can start the paperwork and start putting money into a fund before $10,000, but within 3 years, it has to be built up to the $10,000 to be able to
Invest.
keep it going, yeah. Well, I think it gets invested maybe in a mutual fund. This is not my forte. But so after a certain amount of time, you will be able to pull your investment income. Okay, there will be a spendable amount that each agency is allowed to take yearly to use towards certain things. If you set up certain directives in your establishing document, then they'd have to fall in line with that. But if they didn't, then, I mean, you could use those funds toward like capital improvements and things like that.
So, real life example, we have the library endowment fund that Roger started. We do 4% of the 15-year average is what we can include as an income line in our budget every year. And it's up to about $6,000.
12 quarter average.
1200 now. But yeah, so it's just, you're making money on money.
Right.
And, you never touch the principal, you're only getting the interest.
Right. So, if you wanted to know specifics, you can reach out to Elena, or if you wanted for us, you can reach out
The
to us.
great thing to do is get a big fat check from somebody like Frontex.
Well, and if you
Right.
yeah, a few people have done that for the library building around, you know.
Well, you can have the building fund, but then you can also have an endowment fund that is more for operational sustainability.
Or if it grows enough, you could use it for staffing.
Mhm.
If your agreement, establishing document allows. So it's really just a matter, it could take a while before it grows to anything, I wouldn't say usable, but
Right, sizable.
But with match day,
yep. Okay. So some of the benefits, it can receive donations, so. Your agencies would be, nonprofits, but, and then we are administrating it, so, the fees are already like figured in and everything like that. There's oversight, so that gives it some credibility, so, if somebody. Wants to, maybe somebody that moved out of town 20 years ago, but they wanna make, a donation, but there's new management. If they donate to the foundation, to your endowment, then they have a little bit, more understanding or, relief that it's gonna be managed properly. And then sustainability, because you can't dip into your principal, you've got a certain amount of funds that can be used in perpetuity. So. Okay, so our Manly endowment, did I? Oh, okay, so this is an example. Rosalie Manley started a fund with us for $553,000 in 2009. We have already granted out $456,000 to Southeast Kansas organizations, and right now the current balance is $817,000. So, get somebody that'll. So, I mean, and that'll keep giving year over year over year. So, and because we're not touching the principal, the $553,000, we'll still be able to grant that out to local agencies. Nonprofit agencies. Okay, match day. How does it work? Ours is gonna be different than theirs. We're doing a match week. There are specifics within that we used to do match day, but now we're changing it to match week. We haven't publicized that fully yet. But, we will. So. The way we do it is our endowed funds are the only ones that can receive donations. We do have non-endowed funds. That their use is unrestricted. So if somebody has $100,000 in there, they could pull out any amount. But that the $100,000 would be their principal, so they can spend that down until there's nothing. So donors will give to your fund at CFSEK. And we have $100,000 match. So we break that down into a percentage based off of how much you've been donated over the course of the week. So, your fund could grow from one event, like it could grow pretty massively. I wish I looked at numbers from last year, my bad. But we did really, really good last year.
it's been a game changer for the community foundation year and out.
Yeah.
And it's
Well-
courtesy of the Patterson Family Foundation.
Yes, yes.
Name our funder.
Yes, ma'am. So, Patterson is giving, are they doing each Patterson Family Foundation is giving each community foundation a certain chunk of money to help that match happen. So, and then it's added, we allow our nonprofits to take what would be considered the 5% of the amount awarded, the investment income, or would be the investment income. We allow them to go ahead and receive that if they want to, or they can put the whole donation and match amount into their fund, and it'll keep growing. No, but I didn't put it on, just kidding. So it'll keep growing over time. And then your fund will provide an annual unrestricted support for your agency. So to use for rainy days, things like that, you know. We have a hole in the roof, you know, things like that. So, next. Thank you guys very much. So Maya Angelou, even the stars look lonesome. If it's true that a chain is only as strong as its weakest link, isn't it also true a society is only as healthy as its sickest citizen and only as wealthy as its most deprived? Southeast Kansas is seriously sick. And, you guys in this room are making a difference. So, regardless of whether you create funds or anything like that, you guys are still making a difference. So apply for every grant that you can. Do your agencies some justice with your applications and give the funders respect with your applications.
Thank you so much.
I'm so sorry, the whole 2 hours. 5 minutes if anyone has questions.
Thank you.
We're good?
The partners, really, they funded hospitals, well.
Yeah, no,
They fund, they're Kansas.
yeah,
Okay.
they're Kansas, it's Cerner. I think it's Cerner Corporation as a goal that it has, but, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Good luck. You're trying to do.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Tell me why you get it.
I mean, I mean, kind of, it's been a guide and stuff, right? I actually applied for major.
I think they considered that capital improvement.
Of being, like,
If I'm remembering correctly, I believe that they, so there's.
Fascinating.
So I don't want to push things.
General funds. So, yeah, general funds, we've got the 3 categories, so just, basic.
I did all
you've
this.
got 2 guys and,
Thank you.
You too. So, yeah, just whichever one you want, you know. It's the best, okay.
No.
Thank you.
This is my 1 year.
Oh, okay.
Because we have to do our 990.
Yeah, and that's, and I asked my. I know, I have to.
So. Recently, as I was finishing programming,
There are some.
one of the part of the paperwork that they want to know was they said.
Has
"You need to make sure that the body right now is around the Sarah grant." In terms of when they say general information, what exactly?
The government doesn't give us.
I would probably, like your,
Third party,
if you have like a general visitor count or adults to children's numbers, like they were going to go to your,
Of the funds, you would apply that they would be the.
Yeah, like I still apply for stuff, but it's all through.
Yeah, there's your
yeah,
And they're.
things like that, to kind of give demographics.
I didn't want to add, how percentage of individuals, it's specifically because it was a children's book related grant, had increased over the year. Of course, the issue then was, you know, data,
that.
discrepancy that I brought up previously. The director said that whenever a child left the building different and then came back.
Oh.
It has two different entries. Which I felt was disingenuous to ask the
Numbers are asked for, they're wanting unduplicated figures.
That's why I stopped the force during that, but now we're having in the. So the position and also that won't look good then saying, hey, for us with the ones on here, no houses draw. So, you know, so that's not gonna go too well.
I think that, I mean, again, your board might be helpful in figuring out how to work that, so it's not bad because you don't wanna say, our last. Like, oh, well, if we trust that this is not as needed, even though there's. But you still wanna, I mean, you wanna have an explanation.
And also even if the now is the, item that they did that form, and we still trust that all the other numbers being, put that even after that as terms of. How many kids were at programs and whatnot, that also not,
Right.
pumped up.
So that would.
Increases the.
So that everybody's-
That was, would be able to pass.
So you know the.
Always my question.
Or the percentage has increased though.
Yes, I know that because I just can tell how many people are in the building.
Right, yeah.
Physically, that now we have got an increase in our number, and I'm seeing people coming in, getting library cards and so forth, that I feel has been an increase since last year by this, I can't really show that in terms of data because of the.
I wonder, talk with your board and see what.
So the first
people
thing-
are adjusting the
Yeah.
numbers in relation.
I only did about
to how many
5 minutes or so.
Sorry,
So I was-
she did the most work.
Well, yeah, so
Do
I'm
that,
not
and that might be-
specialist on grant writing.
it might not be
I
the
am here to
whole,
talk about, like, I would
amount
not
of
really
growth,
foundation here.
but it might give you a little.
So I was just talking about our grant.
So that might be
really something.
Okay.
so
Yeah,
it doesn't
so she